Using analog and using digital, I don't really think of it as one or the other. I do both. I still use analog. I still use the digital version in every project. I was missing something in the lower octave, so I got a call from Michael Hill at PMC suggesting bringing the 8.2s over. Not only was it translating, but I was getting kind of phone calls from a few different mastering engineers that I've been working with for many years, all saying the same thing. Your low end is perfect now. Hi, I'm Marc Daniel Nelson here in my studio in Southern California on this great rainy day. So over the years, I've worked in many studios, had many home bases, but over the time and over technology and with the way that the industry is headed, we started going into smaller spaces that weren't classically treated or anything terribly. So you have to kind of start from the ground up. And over the last 2 or 3 years, I've been here in this space, which is essentially a square bedroom. And most people would never, ever consider that being an okay place to be at. I think it's smarter to have a space that feels a lot more cozy and at home, like a cockpit. It's supposed to be the room you spend most of your time in, so you wanted to make it the best you can. Because why else are you going to be doing this in a place that you're not really comfortable in? A lot has changed over the last 5 to 10 years with attended sessions are getting less and less. I usually have a couple people come in when I'm doing movie mixes and stuff because they want to be a part of that experience. But in general, it's usually just me and my dogs. So finding a space that's more about working in my comfort zone is more important than anything. Luckily, as a mixing and tracking engineer, I get plenty of time leaving and going, spending time tracking. But when I'm mixing, I'm kind of just here on my own. So I wanted to make this kind of safety net of a fun little cockpit that is more about, inspiration. So around here, I have all these different toys that I grew up with. And I think that showcases a little bit out of my music. Being in an old sterile studio to me doesn't kind of get my rocks off anymore. I mean, big consoles are great and fun, but they're kind of dark holes. And kind of finding that creative space that's more about your personality really does reflect in your work you make. So designing this room, it was more about not creating this super dead room. It was more about not being in like the death pit, which is what I do relate to when working in these older, larger control rooms. One thing I wanted was real natural light. I know that was always a big no-no, but I can't tell you how much that actually helps with your mental health and trying to keep things going. And if you wanted to flush your brain out for a second, you can look out and see trees or birds or anything. And obviously you can tell I have a lot of color in here, and that really reflects in your work too. All that stuff matters. Gear selection is kind of one of those things that we all kind of have an addiction for. So over the years, I've spent so much time just kind of testing out what my sound would be, going through different summing mixers, different converters, different compressors on the 2-bus, everything kind of, you're just looking for your sound, and you kind of look around going, I've had that for 10 years or I've had that for 15 years. That means it's probably something I should keep on and use consistently. There's a selective amount of things that I think has been a consistent in my life. Obviously, speakers is the number one thing. We were talking earlier about the API sidecar I have, which is really cool, one-of-a-kind piece from Sausalito's record plant, and ended up making a plugin with Pulsar Modular, based off the same kind of unit. And that was really great because going into the world we're in, depending on what I'm working on, I stay in the box. And if I want to stay in the box, I'm going to end up using the sound that I want, that it kind of relates to my vibe. Using analog and using digital, I don't really think of it as one or the other. I do both. I still use analog. I still use the digital version in every project. If I'm doing anything in stereo, I'll try to use the actual one-of-a-kind analog piece, like the Bricasti. There's just something about the hardware that still really works well. But in stem mode, I can use the Seventh Heaven that absolutely mimics what I needed to do. There's just something that using both of them together, it actually works out really great. Same as my API sidecar versus the 455 plugin that I had that does virtually the same thing. About 25 years ago, when I started working as an assistant engineer, I had a mentor at the time telling me over everything, over gear, microphones, that your speakers and how you hear it is the most important thing. Over those years, like we all do, we go through all these different variants of speakers, trying to find the best you can for the most affordability. Usually that doesn't usually work out so well in the speaker land because you have to consider a lot of things. Power, the way that the size is, how it's going to sit in your room, how it translates. It just took many years to kind of understand that. It wasn't until kind of working under Bill Schnee and going to big sessions with Doug Sachs to really understand critical listening and what you're really hearing and how you're hearing it. I went through all these different variations of brands, and I stayed with one very high-end British brand for over a decade. But the thing that always got me was the low end. I was missing something in the lower octave, the way that the drums handled kind of the puffiness of the way it was translated. I couldn't hear it. I could hear it in the car after I mixed and stuff, but I just couldn't hear it in these speakers. So I got a call from Michael Hill at PMC suggesting that he could bring in the 8.2s over for me to test. And he basically set them up in my room, in this room, and said, I'm going to leave them for about a month and let me know what you think. And he and I were very worried, because it's a square room, that maybe it was this room that was the biggest issue. We found out it wasn't. And in fact, everyone that's kind of made comments about, why do you have such huge speakers in that small room? Like, I don't listen very loud. And when I do, it just doesn't fold in the way it would. And it's just more about kind of feeling it. And I like to know that I had that extra power, kind of like having a 911 or something, where you don't really use all that horsepower, but when you need it, it's fun to use. Doing my first initial mixes on these 8.2s, not only was it translating, but I was getting kind of phone calls from a few different mastering engineers that I've been working with for many years, all saying the same thing. What are you changing? Your low end is perfect now. I said, well, I changed my speakers, and I think that could be it. There's this thing that happened with an older set of speakers, more hi-fi set of speakers, that you're not listening to music and stuff like that anymore on speakers or bookshelf speakers. You're listening to it on these sound bars and headphones and stuff like that. Something happened with PMCs where they are just married in such a beautiful way that they're just translating so much better to these options. Could be the low-end extension, could be the DSP in all these little devices that are all kind of working together in harmony. But something felt way different and way more fun to mix on them like that. And for me, that is kind of all it's about, is having fun and kind of geeking out and making sure that you're enjoying what you're doing and not being so sterile with technical stuff. Spent a long time trying to get the technical stuff. You lose faith in making music a little bit when you put too much investment into that. When I got into it because I play guitar, rock music, folk. I love Americana and stuff like that. That's my favorite stuff to mix and record. But over the years, you want to kind of get better at what you're doing and learning different options, challenging yourself. With that, my best advice from Bill Schnee was, try to learn all genres of music when you're working in it. With that on top, with a little Sunday cherry, when your listening environment is kind of uniform to all different styles, where you can hear the full frequency rate, you can kind of do anything you want to do. A lot of people like to use smaller speakers with white cones. I'm going to say that. You can't really hear any information below 100 hertz. And with most music today, pop or soundtrack or anything that you need to hear extension on, you're not really getting that. If I had a choice, I would do Mondays rock and roll, Tuesdays country, Wednesdays pop, Thursdays scores, soundtracky kind of music, Fridays trailerized, heavy kind of electronica. Because the thing with trailerized music is it's kind of a melting pot of every style. It's got orchestral, hi-fi, EDM, rock, all these elements, and you really need to kind of understand what it's doing. So having a speaker that you can really understand the low end is critical for that sort of thing. My number one advice to anyone looking to invest in their future as a mixer or whatever, engineering, even if you're just listening to music and you really want to hear it, choose a speaker that you can actually hear the full range comfortably. Like everything, you could be a Mustang guy or a 911 guy or a Camaro guy. At the end of the day, you just want to choose something that you're really gelling with really good. I've just been really happy. This last year of using the PMCs have been absolute delight. Every day it's kind of fun. If you can kind of forget what you're using, I think you're in a good place and you're just actually mixing for mixing instead of thinking about the frequency response. If it's just working together, you're doing something right.